Two, one, two. Okay. Hello, Margie.
How are you?
Good. Did you want to say something? Okay. Well, friends, it's 11. It's actually turned 11:01. So we are going to start. And as always, I am going to try to stay away a little bit. I'm going to try to stay back. I'm going to ask that as long as we're here, we remain masked. But that, as you know, there are refreshments out there. I just want to offer this reminder to everyone. We are not going to be meeting next Sunday because I am officiating out of town next Sunday. So next weekend, so I'm not going to be back in time on next Sunday. I'm going to be traveling next Sunday. But in any event, I'm delighted that we're going to be able to do this today and that we're going to be able to continue in the weeks to come. Welcome to the people who are joining us online. It's nice to see that the numbers here are slowly increasing in person and that there are more and more people that we can engage in discussion with. It's just lovely, it's just terrific. And it's also nice to know that you're out there with us wherever you are on, more than one continent and joining us. It's wonderful. Today we have a packed agenda. We are going to go through quite a bit. And as I promised, today we are going to talk a little bit about wisdom and about the place of wisdom in our lives. And not just the place of wisdom in our lives, but wisdom in our lives in the context of Ecclesiastes. And what we've learned from Ecclesiastes thus far in the context of the other scrolls that we've been looking into. So in many ways, this is a freestanding kind of session. For those who haven't followed these sessions in the past, but at the same time also anchored in the material that we've been covering. And this is the session wherein we start to see the beginnings of a particular kind of religiosity that becomes our religiosity. And I want to point this out right from the beginning. We are going to study the genesis of a certain kind of religious thought and its place in our lives in the context of what's come before, and in a way that creates a tension that we live with to this very day. What we're going to be seeing today is the remnants of, if you like, a little bit of a train wreck unfolding. And that kind of thing that is unfolding, the event that is unfolding, is an event that we live with to this very day. The dynamic persists. So this is going to be a little bit of a ride. We're going to be looking at some biblical texts. And let's start with a review. We're going to continue on. I'm going to start again with the first two slides just of information. We're going to show them very briefly. If anyone is not on our mailing list and wishes to be on our mailing list for these sessions only, please reach out to Joanna Cullinan. And now that you've seen the slide, and if everybody wants to write, anyone wants to write this down, we're going to keep this up for just, or maybe not. But here we go. We are back. For anyone who wants to write this down, maybe even at home, jcullinan@ttti.org, right? And if anyone wants to reach out to me during this session, in the midst of this session, and moving forward to discuss this, please reach out to me at jcohen@ttti.org. During the session, I will look at my phone, and I will see whether there are any questions, and as I did in the past, I will address them here in the session. So the phone is on, and I'm going to be waiting to hear from you. jcohen@ttti.org. Okay? So, here we go. Here we go. Let us review and let us move forward. So what did we look at Ecclesiastes thus far? Right? Hevel havalim hakol hevel, right? Vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. Everything is that utterance that turns into thin air, and the grand cycle of nature and the wonders of the natural cycles, right? The wonders of the water cycle, of the sun, of the wind, of the earth, right? Remaining. And the growth of an understanding in the mind of Ecclesiastes and in our minds that nature is all-powerful. The world around us is all-powerful. All the rivers flow to the sea, and the sea is never full. The wind turns to the east and turns to the west and comes from the north and then emerges from the south. There's nothing we can do about it. The earth is here to stay. The sun is much bigger than anything we can control. In other words, nature is grand, and we are small. Yes, we can alter the path of a river. Yes, we can build a dam. Yes, we can build a pool. Yes, we can plant a tree. Yes, we can take down trees. Yes, we can do all kinds of things to nature. But we're not going to alter the forces of nature, the underlying forces of nature. That's not going to happen. We could cause ourselves harm. We can cause animals harm. We can cause harm, but eventually the world will come back to equilibrium. The world is bigger and stronger than we are. And the grand nature that surrounds us, the natural world that surrounds us, the grandiosity of everything around us, also signifies our smallness. So, by comparison, we are mere humans, right? Remember? Does this ring a bell? Yes? Okay. And so we start with that, and the notion that nothing is new under the sun. Ein chadash tachat hashamesh. Ein chadash tachat hashemesh, we learned last time. Then we talked about memory. We talked about whether we're going to be remembered. You remember we talked about memory and justice. Yes? We talked about justice being done and justice not being done, and us not being able to even remember. Us not remembering. Us not remembering generations past. We don't remember generations past. We don't remember 10 generations back. We don't know who our great-great-great-great-grandparents were. We have no idea. We don't remember. We don't remember the good things that were done and the bad things that were done and the good deeds that were done and the kindnesses that were done. And we don't remember. And others will not remember us. We're not going to remember. We don't remember. Others are not going to remember us. Memory is fleeting. Memory is anchored in us. And if we're fleeting, memory is fleeting, right? It's not a particularly comforting thought. It's not a particularly pleasant thought, right? But Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, comes to this conclusion that justice is not going to be done and memory of it is going to be fleeting. Now, there are going to be some things we're going to remember, but they're a tiny minority of the things that happen in the world, right? And generally speaking, memory is fleeting. And we talked about this last time. I don't know if you remember, but we spoke about this, and this was one of the things that we spoke about. And even the legacy of the poor and the good deeds of the poor and the meek and those who are not necessarily privileged, who remembers them even during their lifetimes? More often than not, we don't remember. Remember, we spoke about this. And then the notion that we should focus on the here and now. We should focus on joy. We should focus on love. We should focus on relationships. We should focus on those things that bring value to our lives right now. This is what we need to, this is what brings meaning to our lives, says Ecclesiastes. Right? And remember, Tovim hashnayim min ha'echad. Two are better than one. Relationship is better than no relationship. Connection is better than no connection. And three, the three-pronged rope, the braided rope of three strings, is unlikely to break, is even less likely to break than two, right? In other words, the notion that relationship is good. And what do we have to hang on to? Relationship, love, the things that give us pleasure, and self-care, taking care of ourselves. Remember Ecclesiastes saying, wash your clothes, wear clean clothes, put oil in your hair, oil your hair, take care of yourself. Even if it's expensive, even take care of yourself, right? Dignify yourself. Do this for yourself. Yes, remember all of this? Yeah? Good, good. Which leaves us with the big question of where is wisdom in all of this? Kohelet Ecclesiastes is a philosopher. He's a thinker, right? He presents himself as the wisest person, king over Jerusalem, knew everything, spoke to everybody, tested everything, examined everything, sought truth. What is a truth seeker? What is a knowledge seeker? A philosopher, right? Ecclesiastes is a philosopher. What does he tell us with regard to the natural world and the grand cycle of the world? I am familiar with Greek philosophy. I know Greek science. I know Greek philosophy. I know the elements. I know there's nothing Ecclesiastes doesn't know. He's a philosopher. Where is wisdom in all of this? What's the place of wisdom in all of this? So now comes the really interesting piece of this. It's a little bit challenging. I'm going to ask you to bear with me. And we're going to do this in contrast with another biblical text that I've already presented to you, and that is the book of Proverbs. Let's take a look at this and see what Ecclesiastes does for us. Here we go. Here's Proverbs chapter 3. This should look familiar to you. Happy is the person who finds wisdom, the person who attains understanding. The value of wisdom is better than silver, its yield greater than gold. Wisdom is more precious than rubies. All of goods cannot equal it. Do you get the picture? Yes? What should we be seeking? Material good? Money? Another house? Another car? No. What should we really seek here in Proverbs? We should be seeking wisdom. This is Proverbs chapter 3. I don't know if anyone has the book, but if you have the book, I don't know what page it is on. It's Proverbs chapter 3. It's remarkable. It's a remarkable chapter, right? And it is a pitch for wisdom. And we're going to see why in one moment, right? Proverbs is the wisdom text, right? And where does it land, right? Its ways, the ways of wisdom are pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Dracheha darchei noam, v'chol netivoteha shalom. Where do we know these words from? The tree of life, the taking of the Torah out of the ark, right? When we say that about the Torah, what are we saying it about? Is it about the Torah here? No, it's about wisdom. This is all about wisdom, right? For us, Torah represents wisdom, but really, in the book of Proverbs, they're not writing about Torah. They're writing about wisdom, right? This is the mindset of the philosopher. What are we seeking? We're seeking wisdom. We're seeking to learn more, to push the boundaries of knowledge, push the boundaries of understanding, right? This is the value. The value is wisdom. Yes? Am I making sense? Okay, and then we move on, we carry on, right? Because it continues, right? All its paths are peace. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay? It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it, and all its supporters are happy. Yes, exactly, and we clap, as they do at camp, right? It is a tree of, okay. We clap as they do at camp. It's, again, about wisdom, not about the Torah, here in the book of Proverbs. And eventually, God founded the earth in wisdom. God established the heavens in understanding. Why are we seeking wisdom? Because we shall understand the world and the foundations of the world, the way God created the world, through wisdom and through understanding. In other words, what are wisdom and understanding? Chokhmah and Bina, these two words. What are these words about? Our access to understanding the world around us. This is the key. Where is God? How do we reach God? How do we come close to God? How do we understand God? Through wisdom and understanding. Chokhmah and Bina. By the way, has anyone heard of the Lubavitcher Hasidic movement? Yes? What is their acronym? What is their acronym? How do we call them? What's their place in Solon? What's it called? Chabad. 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 Chet, Beit, Dalet. Chabad. What does Chabad stand for? What does it stand for? Chokhmah, wisdom. Bina, understanding. Da'at, knowledge. Da'at. Da'at, which means knowledge. Chokhmah, Bina, Da'at. Where did they get this from? I'll tell you where they got it from. I read it in a book. So here is where it comes from, right? Right? And in other words, what is the idea? The idea is that through probing, through philosophy, through science, through learning the ways of the world, this is how we reach God. Right? This is the meaning of this. What Chabad does of it is a different story, but that's what the acronym stands for, right? But you see what I'm, right? You see how powerful the idea is. In other words, here, Judaism is synonymous with philosophy. Judaism is a path towards wisdom, towards learning, towards understanding. Judaism is that journey. How do we get to God? That's how we get to God. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? Margie, would you mind if...
I don't want to sidetrack things, but when you spoke last week, you read this terribly anti-feminist portion.
Yes.
And if they were so steeped in Greek knowledge, they certainly knew that the goddess of wisdom was Athena.
They must have.
And they
and
could
that's
have got,
that's wonderful.
So I'm actually wondering the source of that, because the cultures around them revered females in certain ways. And even in Proverbs, we have the woman of valor in the last chapter. So
First of all, it's a wonderful question. Where is the anti-feminism here? Where does the anti-feminism come from? If they were aware of Greek philosophy, and they knew that Greek philosophy and Greek theology, Athena is the goddess of wisdom, where does this leave us? What about this anti-feminism? More, further. I, in the previous slide, translated everything to be gender neutral because that's what I do. I transform the biblical text to be gender neutral. Read the biblical text. What is wisdom in Hebrew? Feminine. Wisdom is feminine. It's never in the masculine. It's always feminine. Chokhmah is a she. Right? What do we see, therefore, in Ecclesiastes? And what did I say about Ecclesiastes? Right? Ecclesiastes is not just a conservative text. Right? It is in many ways a reactionary text. It is a text that rails against this kind of perspective with regard to wisdom. Right? It doesn't mean that men have no access to wisdom. Right? The notion that wisdom here is in the feminine doesn't mean that, of course, women of valor, Song of Songs, Naomi, we talked about all of these things, right? What does it mean that there's no wisdom in men? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that wisdom is for everyone. Wisdom, in a sense, is a maternal presence that gives rise to everybody. Right? In this respect, Ecclesiastes is a reactionary text, and we're going to see how much more reactionary it is in just one moment. Right? Okay? So, wonderful question. Thank you for this, Margie. Okay, but here we are. We're understanding that philosophy and the search for wisdom and the search for truth are completely consistent with what we are about. That's how we get to God. God founded the earth in wisdom, the world in understanding, the heavens in understanding. Now, let's move forward. There's a little bit more. Look at this. I'm going to skip through this relatively quickly. I just want you to see this. The very end of chapter 3 and the beginning of chapter 4, I want you to see this pitch for wisdom and how wisdom is incorporated into everything. I'm glad that we have no teens in the room right now, because we're gonna see some of what the implications are. The wise shall obtain honor; those who are not, disgrace is their portion. Children, heed the discipline of a parent. Listen and learn understanding, for I give you good instruction. Lekach tov natati lachem torati al ta'azovu, ki lekach tov natati lachem. Again, from the Torah service, taking the Torah in and out of the ark. Right? Ki lekach tov natati lachem. All of this material is now associated with Torah. What are the rabbis saying to us? This is not just about wisdom, it's about Torah. Torah is the gateway to wisdom. Yes? Right? Okay. I was a child to my parents, their tender darling. My parent instructed me. The Hebrew is actually my father instructed me. Everything here I change. My parent instructed me and said, let your mind hold on to my words. Keep my commandments and you shall live. Let's move forward, right? Another slide. Acquire wisdom, acquire understanding. Do not forget and do not swerve from my words. What does it say here? Go about your life seeking knowledge. Go about your life seeking learning, seeking understanding, right? Acquire wisdom. With all your acquisitions, acquire understanding. Embrace it, and it will exalt you. It will bring you honor if you embrace it, and so on and so forth. Right? Now, I want you to see this because we're all parents, right? I want us to move forward to the next slide. Take a look at this. My son, heed and take in my words, and you will have many years of life. I instruct you in the ways of wisdom. I guide you in straight courses. You will walk without breaking stride. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold fast to this discipline. Do not let go. Keep it. Wisdom is your life. What do we want for our children? We want them to be happy, thank you. We do want them to be happy, very true. We want them to grow. We want them to walk without breaking stride. We want them to be able to run without stumbling. We do not want our children to fall. This is a parent writing. This is the writing of a parent. This is what we want for our children. And what is the path that we want for our children? Work hard at school. Learn what they have to teach you. Learn from people. Get together with people. Learn. Learn about life. Open doors. Inquire. Ask. Yes? That is what we want for our children. Right? And why do we want this for our children? So that they may walk and not stumble and be distracted as they walk, that they may run and not fall. This is so moving that it's in the Torah, that it's in the Tanakh, in our Hebrew Bible. This is parenting. This is what we want as parents. Stay in the path of Judaism, stay in the path of wisdom. Thank you so much. Exactly right. Stay on the path. Listen, I have been your age. I know what you're going through. Stick it out. Stay the path. Stay the course. Stay the course, right? It's remarkable, remarkable. And then, what's in the Hebrew Bible? It gets better. It gets even better. Look at this. I had to share this with you. Next slide. Let's take a look. Lazy one, you my lazy child, go to the ant. Lech el hanemala atzel, re'ed racheha v'chacham. Study its ways and learn. Look at the ant. Look at the natural world. Don't just look at people. Look at the natural world. What does the ant do? Without leaders, officers, rulers, it lays up its stores during the summer, gathers in its food at the harvest. And you say to your child, how long are you staying in bed? Oh, come on. Please, get up. I know you're a teen. Please, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. Get up, get out of bed, do your homework, please. You have reading to do. Come on. When will you wake from your sleep? Oh, a bit more sleep, just a little bit more. I want to stay under the covers. Does this sound familiar? Can you believe this is in our Bible? Look at this. It doesn't speak to just our minds. It speaks to our hearts. This is the parent experience. This is who we are. This is what we want for our children. We want coherence. We want a path forward. We want to know that they are going to be set out for life in order to succeed. This happens every time I teach. Not to worry. Yeah.
Isn't this the same basically in every religion?
Dennis, thank you very much. Dennis is asking the question, isn't this the same in every religion? Well, in most religions. Yes and no. And we're getting to the no piece. And I have to say, the no piece comes from us. Which is really interesting. Because I have to tell you, this is one of the things that most speak to me. I love this. And I love that it is in our Hebrew Bible. I love that it is in our Tanakh. Will you please wake from your sleep? I love it. It's wonderful. You know, it makes me feel I am not alone. There's something really remarkable and special about this. Others have gone through it. And this was a long time ago. This was a long time ago. right? But look at this and look at how magnificent this is. Now, I told you already that, and take a look at this slide for a moment. I want us to take this in. But I told you already that Ecclesiastes is a polemic, that it's a propaganda text. And today we're going to see how it is a propaganda text. What makes it truly a polemical propaganda text. A text that presents itself as a text of wisdom, written by a philosopher, not coming from God, coming from the philosopher, representing the search of wisdom, right? And look at what Ecclesiastes does. Now, let's take a look. Okay, Ecclesiastes. Look at this. I, Kohelet, I, Ecclesiastes, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I said, this is the very beginning, the very first chapter of Ecclesiastes, right? As we said this before, right? This is the very beginning. I set my mind to study and to probe with wisdom all human actions under the sun, an evil matter that God has left humanity to answer for. Schon schlecht. Already not good. I observed all the happenings under the sun, and I found that all of this is futile, the pursuit of wind. The crooked cannot be made straight, the lack cannot be made good. What I discovered was that human affairs were so flawed, were so problematic, were so difficult, we don't even know where to start. There's no way for us to repair this. This is hopeless. In other words, what we're starting with is not wisdom for us to grow, for us to move forward, for us to do well, for us not to stumble, for us to continue on, for the child to do well, for the child to gain and to benefit from the world. What we're starting with here is a sense of pessimism. We're not going to be able to work this out. This is not going to be repaired. The crooked cannot be made straight. The lack cannot be made good. Do you see this? Yes? Do you understand what? Yes? Me'uvat lo yitkon. Right, okay, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go on with the Hebrew. I adore the Hebrew of this, but I'm going to spare you. Let's continue here for a moment. Let's continue. I said to my own heart, here I have grown richer and wiser than any that ruled before me over Jerusalem, and my mind has zealously absorbed wisdom and learning. No one is wiser than Kohelet. Kohelet is the philosopher with a capital P. And so I set my mind to know wisdom and to appraise madness and folly, and I learned that this pursuit of wisdom, that this was a pursuit of wind. For as wisdom grows, vexation grows. To increase learning is to increase heartache. The more I learn, the more I realize how wrong things are. The more I realize how badly things are going. The more I learn and the more I grow in learning and in wisdom, the more my heart aches. The more I learn my limitations, the more I learn how little I can affect things. Right? Remember Proverbs a moment ago. Remember the book of Proverbs. And what is this? Is this a sales pitch for wisdom? Is this a sales pitch for learning? What is happening here in Ecclesiastes? The philosopher, the seeker of wisdom, the seeker of learning, the seeker of truth. What is going on here? It's not just reality, it's reality, thank you. Maybe it is depression. Maybe Ecclesiastes is depressed. But Ecclesiastes is also saying, I'm not sure about this. I am not sure about the entire enterprise. I don't know that the entire enterprise is worth it. Remember what Ecclesiastes said last time that we read. Those who do well, those who deal wisely with their business, and so on and so forth, those who do well don't necessarily profit in life. Those who are righteous don't necessarily profit. Sometimes the evil profit and the righteous do not. We just don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to it. At least not that we can make out. Right? Look at what Ecclesiastes is telling us. And look at how different the message suddenly is. This is a wisdom text. This is our path forward. Oh, I just want to warn you. The more you learn, the worse it gets. Nice. Thank you. How about a graduate degree? Anyone? Right? I mean, think about this for a moment. What are we telling our children? Right? Don't expect to fix everything. Don't think everything will be okay. It is perhaps not going to be okay. This is my experience, says Ecclesiastes. And it's not good. It's not happy. This is where Ecclesiastes comes from, right? Now, we have to ask ourselves the question, why? A moment ago, and it's incorporated into our Torah service, wisdom is the key to understanding God. The rabbis put it into the Torah service. Ki lekach tov natati lachem torati al ta'azovu. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba. It's all about wisdom. Did the rabbis believe that we didn't know, that we didn't read the book of Proverbs? No, they knew that we knew where it came from. They understood that we would read the text. They knew that we would make the connection between Torah and wisdom. What's this? What is this? Does it reflect the time he was living in? Is it honest? I mean, what is this, right? It contains both ideas, but wisdom here is not getting a particularly positive spin. I mean, is that fair? Is that a fair thing to say? Yes.
Couldn't this also say that there's so much to learn that you'll never know it all? But that still does not relieve you of the responsibility to study.
There's so much to learn, you'll never get it all. You'll never learn it all, but that doesn't relieve, right? But this, does that make you want to go on and learn? Does that? No, not particularly. Not particularly, right, Mel? Not particularly, right? I mean, this is, look at what is happening here. Helga, last one, and then we're going to continue, yes.
So that you can integrate each material to what you already know and form your own wisdom?
Isn't this the whole point? That we should be, thank you, Helga, that we should be able to integrate that which we're learning into that which we already know and grow in that process, right? About ourselves, about others, about the world, right? Except if we grow in wisdom and we grow in vexation and in heartache, really, what's the point? Right? Should we really keep on going? Is it worth the effort? If the pursuit of wisdom is folly, if it is a vanity, right? Yes? You see how undermining this text is. How damaging it is to the pursuit of wisdom, right? And it gets better. Right? Let's take a look. I want you to show this to you. My thoughts turn to, this is chapter 2. This is all over the book of Ecclesiastes. Take a look at this. Verse 12. I found that wisdom is superior to folly as light is superior to darkness. Oh, that's good. That's good, right? The wise has eyes in her or his head, whereas the fool walks in darkness. Wonderful. Stop there. Enough. No more. You've plenty. This is great. Wonderful. No, we have to continue. But I also realize the same fate awaits them both. The fate of the fool is also destined for me. To what advantage then have I been wise? I came to the conclusion this too was futile. A moment ago we were on the right track. Wisdom was light. Foolishness was darkness. We were recuperating here. We were gaining ground again. Look at this. Really? In our Hebrew Bible, this is what we need to see? You see what's going on here, right? You know, for a moment there's a glimmer of light, and then what does he do? He takes it away from us. Right? Do you see the dynamic of the text? Yes? Right? This is what propaganda is. Right? Does anyone remember Julius Caesar? Yeah, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar? They're all honorable men. This glimmer of them being honorable men, honorable people, right? And of course they're not. Remember this? Yes? Remember this notion of giving and immediately taking away? And undermining our confidence in what we know and in what we think? Yes? Look at what's happening here. Look at the skill with which this text is redacted and put together. Remarkable. And in a moment, we're going to see why. We're going to understand why. Right? It actually gets worse. It still gets worse. Take a look at this. Let's move forward. Just like the fool, the wise is not remembered. As the succeeding days roll by, both are forgotten. The wise dies just like the fool. And so, he says, I loathed life. I came to hate life. I came to understand there was no purpose in life. This is Ecclesiastes, the philosopher, the wisest of all people, right? Think about this. Mosif da'at, mosif mach'ov, the greater we know, the more we know, the greater our pain, right? The greater our pain to the point of loathing life. Look at this. He speaks to us here, right? I was distressed by all that goes on under the sun. Everything is futile in the pursuit of wind. Right? I have to tell you this. It's a side comment, and please understand it as a very parenthetical. Please put 3 parentheses marks around this comment. I just, this last week, on Monday of this week, spoke to a colleague and a friend who is a climate scientist, who has spent the last 2 decades studying the climate and working with groups of scientists to study the climate and so on and so forth. And this is a person whom I met in Cincinnati many years ago and I remained in touch with, and a wonderful person and scientist with a wonderful family, and a person whom I've known and I've been in touch with. It was remarkable, the sense of despondency that came through our conversation. All the study, all the research, all the findings, what are we doing? It leads to nothing. We can't compete against powerful lobbies that pay politicians and that pay... We can't compete. The policies aren't changing rapidly enough. We are already seeing this in motion. It's getting to be too late for us to change to alter course. All the learning, all the knowledge, all the stuff we're doing, what have I spent my life doing? My adult life, from the time of me being a graduate student all the way through my career, what have I been doing? To what end? To what purpose? Who's listening? Who sees what's going on? Who understands? We're speaking to ourselves in an echo chamber. Nothing is happening. And when stuff is happening, it's not enough. Right? I mean, you see, right, what, I mean, I have to say, it took me a while to recover from that conversation. I will carry this conversation for many, many years to come. It's one of those moments wherein you understand the despondency that comes with knowing something that you see happening, right? You see this, by the way, in Greek tragedy as well, around the stories of Agamemnon, and you see this notion of understanding what's happening, by the way, also in the feminine prophetic figure. In other words, what is happening in our lives, what is happening right now, what is unfolding, and we cannot alter the course of what is happening around us, or the sense that we are powerless in the presence of all that is going on, right? And the notion of futility and the notion of depression that comes with it. Someone mentioned depression before, right? The notion of us being in that particular place. Why are we saying this? I mean, is this hopeful? Is this the way we want to leave the room now? Have a wonderful week, everybody. I mean, what is this? Why is Ecclesiastes saying this to us? Is this constructive? To be aware so that we change things? How are you going to change things? Everything is the pursuit of wind. Everything is the pursuit of wind. How are you going to change things? How does this allow us to be constructive? Right? Or what are we trying to do? Are we trying to be constructive here? Right? Okay, just a couple, yes. Well, is that what it says?
Well, it says that it's vapor, it's not being passed on. We will forget what we learned. But if you pass it on...
Isn't that what, in other words, thank you for saying this, what are you doing here? What are we doing here? Knowledge is vapor when, I'm just repeating, knowledge is vapor when we do not pass it on. When we pass it on, there's a way to build on knowledge and to increase knowledge. And Helga said this a moment ago. It's about what we learn and how it builds up and how we progress through learning. What is this? This is our defense of learning. This is our defense of wisdom. This is our defense of science. We are moderns. We believe in learning. We believe in wisdom. We believe in science. This is our defense of it, right? This is our response to everything is futile. Everything is the pursuit of the wind, right? Yes? But we don't see this here, right? So what would Kohelet, if he stood here, say to you? Yes, you can invent the cell phone. Yes, you can invent ways. Yes, you can invent, this, that, or the other. Can you get rid of idolatry? Can you get rid of people cheating? Can you get rid of injustice? Can you get rid of poverty? Can you get rid of mistreatment of people? The big issues in our lives. How many years of science have we had? How many years of learning have we had? What do we not know? Has no one told us? Have we not heard? Right? All those things that are happening under the sun. At the end of the day, what drives them? What drives us? Can this be repaired? Right? In other words, what Ecclesiastes would say is to try to undermine your faith in learning and wisdom and science. And we have yet to answer the question, why? Why? Margie, and then we'll carry on. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you think that he is, near death, that he's old? Because when he's talking about himself, the wise person dies just like a fool. I mean, is part of this his own?
It's a really fascinating question. It's a really fascinating question. It's a really wonderful question that you ask. Is Kohelet about to die? Kohelet is certainly aware of mortality. Kohelet has death in front of him. Whether he's about to die, I don't know. But Kohelet has death in mind. And futility. And, in other words, what Kohelet understands is that but for the world, we are all finite. Kohelet has finitude in mind. Right? Now, are you ready for worse? You want more? Are you ready for a moment for a little bit worse? Yes? I promise you I'm not going to leave you like this, but just a little bit more because I need you to see this. It's really important for us to see because it becomes so foundational to who and what we are and to the way we approach the world. Let's take a look at the next slide. God brings everything to pass precisely at its time. God puts eternity in our minds, but without a person ever guessing from first to last all the things God brings to pass. What is the answer? God. In other words, what is the answer to our inability to attain wisdom? What is the answer to our inability to fix our problems? What is the answer to the world as it is? What is the answer to all of this? What is the answer to the mystery with a capital M? The answer is God. It is beyond us. It is God. God is that which transcends us. God is that which is above. God is up there. We are here. It is about God. That is the answer. It's about God. Right? Now, bearing this in mind, let's continue. Let's continue. Whatever brought to pass, whatever God brought to pass will recur. Nothing has been added to and nothing reduced. What is occurring occurred long since. Everything that is happening has already happened. Oh, you think it's the first time in the Ukraine? It's not the first time. These things have already happened. You think that China and Taiwan, it's the first? It's not the first time. These things have already happened. Oh, you think our debate about the LGBTQ? No, it's not the first time. It's already happened. Oh, you think that all of our struggles with minorities and all of our struggles with discrimination, you think it's the first time? It's not the first time. It's all already happened. Climate crises, you think it's our first time? I assure you it's already, we may not remember, it's already happened. It's all been here before. And you think, Dennis, that it's gotten worse. And everyone before you who experienced it said, oh, can it get worse? Right? This is Ecclesiastes saying, wait a minute, step back, gain perspective. It's awful, it's terrible. Human beings are suffering. Real people are suffering. There is reality to this. This is not just, this is real. The suffering is real. The horror is real. The problems are real. But things have happened before. And awful things have happened before. And good things have happened before. And what is what was, which is what will be. Yes, Helga.
Well, is the next step, how do we anticipate that there is a divine plan?
So let's stick with this for a moment. The question is the next step that there is a divine plan? Let's stick with the question for a moment. I don't want to respond to the question quite yet, but let's remember that the answer is that it is beyond us. There is an answer, and the answer of Ecclesiastes is it's beyond us. It's not under our control. We're not going to fix it. And our lives and our history and our human affairs are cyclical. What was is what is what will be. Right? The seasons are cyclical. The rotation of the earth is cyclical. Everything is cyclical. Human affairs are cyclical too. Do you see what is going on here? Yes? Right? This is what Ecclesiastes is telling us. Now, it's remarkable. It's really quite remarkable. I promise I will only keep you for a few more moments because I know that the refreshments are waiting for us and I want us to go out and to have refreshments. So just a couple of minutes more. Bear with me, just a couple of minutes more. Let's take a look at the next slide. Take a look at this. Here is one of the most difficult moments, perhaps the most difficult moment in the book of Ecclesiastes. This is Ecclesiastes in its anti-Genesis mode. What does Genesis stand for? What does the Torah portion of Bereshit, Genesis, stand for? The beginning, the creation of the world, and the uniqueness of humankind as the jewel in the crown of the creation of the world. With regard to no other animal, what does God do with humanity? What does God do with humans? God places God's breath into the human. Right? B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, God created human beings. Right? What is this about? We human beings are the jewel in the crown. There's a glimmer of God in us. Right? And yet we are made of clay. We are part of the world. We are made of clay. This is Ecclesiastes not only being a reactionary, but going out there and destroying Genesis. Going out there with a hatchet at our Hebrew Bible, and not only the Hebrew Bible, the very foundation of our Hebrew Bible, the Torah portion of Genesis. Look at this. I mean, look at the pain. You know, you read these words and they jump at you from the page. This is remarkable. I have decided to look at this rationally and to dissociate humans from the divine beings. Wait a minute, I know it says that in the book of Genesis, but you know what? I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to look at this rationally, just on a scientific basis, and recognize that we are beasts. We are animals. We are just like other animals. In respect to our fate and the fate of the beast, they are one and the same. One dies, so dies the other. Both have the same life breath. Wait a minute, they breathe. Mammals breathe the same way we breathe. It's the same thing. Human has no superiority over beast. Both amount to nothing. Says Ecclesiastes. This is chapter 3. Both go to the same place. Both came from dust and return to dust. Who knows if our life breath does rise upwards? And if the animals goes downwards? Who knows? Do I know? Do I have any has anyone come back to tell me? Do I have any scientific knowledge of this? What? Somehow we human beings are superior to animals? Is he angry with God, Mel? Is he angry with God? I think he is angry with God. I think he is angry. And at the same time, what does he recognize? There is nothing else but God. In other words, I can't get there. I don't have a path. I don't have a way to get there. At the end of the day, it is about God. Right? And we are no better than the animals. So let's take a look at what happens next. Be not overeager to go to the house of God. More acceptable is obedience than the offering of fools, for they know nothing but do wrong. Don't, you're the rituals you're all focusing on, don't worry so much about the rituals. Do the right things. Keep your mouth from being rash. Let not your throat be quick to bring forth speech before God. God is in the heaven and you are on earth. Speak less. What do we know? We know nothing. Let's not talk. What can we say? Forget the rituals, forget the sacrifices, forget, what do we know? We are hanging on to straw. We're clutching on to straw. Your words should be few, right? And then, moving on, just as dreams come with much brooding, this is in Hebrew, again, this is just the most magnificent language ever written. So does foolish utterance come with much speech. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. Do not let your mouth bring you into disfavor. Don't plead before the messenger that it was an error. Fear God. You don't know what you're fearing. We don't know what's in store for us. I could come out and fall on this parking lot right now. I have no idea. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no justice to it. Right? Fear God. Else God may be angered by your talk and destroy your possessions. Much dreaming leads to futility and to superfluous talk. Don't make plans. Don't dream. Oh, you think you're going to fix the world? Oh, we're going to repair? We're going to make everything right? We're going to make a real difference? No. All of this leads to superfluous talk. What do you know? Here you were going to fix the world, and COVID hit. And everyone stayed home. What do you know? What do we know? Right? You see what's going on here, yes? And at the same time, it sounds depressed. It sounds hopeless. It sounds angry. It sounds upset, but it's not without wisdom. It's not completely without merit. It's not completely without a grain of truth. Right? In other words, we can't completely dismiss this. Yes? Or maybe we can. Right? Do you understand what is going on? I'm sorry, but it's not the whole truth, but there's something here. There is something here, right? Which leads us to our conclusion. And our conclusion is at the end of the book. This is the eulogy that was offered for Kohelet, for Ecclesiastes. Utter futility, said Kohelet, said Ecclesiastes, all is futile. This is us now speaking about Kohelet, us speaking about Ecclesiastes. Right? As Kohelet was a sage, he continued to instruct the people. He listened to and tested many maxims. Kohelet sought to discover useful sayings and to record truth. Kohelet tried. He tried. What did it lead to? Anger, upset, depression, heartache. But he tried. Yes? The sayings of the wise are like goads, like nails fixed in prodding sticks. In other words, the sayings of the wise hurt. The sayings of Kohelet hurt. They cause us pain. It's painful. This is tough stuff. Right? They were given by one shepherd. Here is the eulogy. They were given by one shepherd. This comes from one source. All this wisdom. And more than these, my child, be warned. Here is the lesson. The making of many books, read, study, distill, research, produce books, write, publish articles, publish books. The making of many books is without limit. There's no end to it. Your book is not going to be the end of wisdom. You're going to discover something, other people are going to come and refute it. There's going to be another book that's going to come and argue against yours. The making of many books, to the making of many books, there is no limit. And much study is wearying of the flesh. It's a good thing we don't have teens here, right? Don't worry about writing books. Too much study is not good for you. This is the eulogy for Ecclesiastes. This is the eulogy for Kohelet. This is like anti-modernism. This is like completely runs against our worldview, our approach to the world, right? Don't bother. Don't bother, right? And now, to the end, the sum of the matter, sof davar, when all is said and done, revere God and observe God's commandments. What do we have to hold on to? What do we have left? God. That's all we have. Revere God's commandments. Because it applies to everyone, to all of humankind. That God will call every creature to account for everything, including the unknown. The good and the bad. The last word in the book of Ecclesiastes is bad. Right? In other words, what are we left with? We are left with God. God is the answer. Why? Because we cannot place our confidence in wisdom. Wisdom is not going to get us there. Wisdom is human, wisdom is limited, it is finite, it is ours. And what is the infinite? God. God is in the heavens and we are here, right? Calm down with all the wisdom and all the learning and all the science and all of that. At the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen. There are no guarantees. We don't see the plan. We don't have a crystal ball. We cannot predict. We don't know whether our actions will end up doing good or doing ill. What do we know? What is left for us? It's God. Why is this so crucially important? Because a moment ago, my friends, Judaism was consistent with philosophy. In the book of Proverbs, the path to Torah was wisdom, the path to God was wisdom. Torah and wisdom were the same thing. Judaism was philosophy. Judaism was the search, the yearning for wisdom, for learning, for science, for understanding the world. Lech el hanemala atzel, go to the ant, O lazy one. Look at the natural world. We're not talking about the text of Bereshit. Look, observe the natural world. Science, observation, experimenting, understanding, wisdom. This is Judaism in the book of Proverbs. Judaism and philosophy go hand in hand. This is our Torah service. when we take the Torah out of the ark. And here in Ecclesiastes, we find the beginnings of an anti-intellectual, anti-philosophical, religious tendency that says, guys, we're not going to get there. We're not going to fix this. What was is what is, and is what will be. At the end of the day, the conditions of our lives, the meaning of our life, is much closer to the meaning of the lives of people who lived 2,500 years ago than we care to admit. What was is what keeps repeating itself. Life is cyclical. There will be war, there will be peace. We will be up, we will be down. We will be healthy, we will be sick. We will be joyous, we will mourn. We will be rewarded, we will be afflicted, and we will not know why. And there will be no rhyme or reason for it. And this anti-intellectual, anti-philosophy, anti-learning, anti-science tendency within religion lives through. This is its manifesto. This is where it comes from. You see the debates that are taking place in Israel right now about teaching maths and English and science in the Haredi school systems in Israel, and the rabbis fighting tooth and nail against teaching science and philosophy and math and all of these English and computer science. Do you see this happening? Where is it coming from? Why? Because we put our trust in God. Because what is really the important thing to learn? It's Torah. It's the commandments. What do we need to do? We need to fear God. Where does it come from? Right here. What is the dynamic that we live with in our lives? We are on the spectrum, my friends, between the book of Proverbs and the book of Ecclesiastes. Are you going to tell me, anyone here in the room, that there hasn't been a moment in your lives where you felt like this? And yet, we guide our lives on the basis of a search for wisdom and a faith in wisdom and science. When we're sick, we go to the doctor. We take medications. Until we don't. This is the story of our lives. And now you understand where this dynamic comes from. And this is in our Hebrew Bible. The anti-Genesis is in our Hebrew Bible. The attack on wisdom is in our Hebrew Bible. We read this on Sukkot. For everyone to know. This, my friends, is an introduction to Ecclesiastes about wisdom. This is what I wanted to share with you today, because it has created it has founded, it has launched so much of the dynamic of our religious life that survives to this very day. I wanted you to see this. I want us to appreciate it. And I want us to understand where this comes from. That is what I wanted to share with you today. We struggle with this every single day. So I know this has been difficult. I know this has been dark. I know this has been heavy. And I'm especially grateful to you for bearing with me today. And I promise you that we're going to try to lift ourselves up from these doldrums in the coming weeks. I'm going to allow you next week a break to recover. And we're going to regather in 2 weeks' time. Thank you, everyone.